Hi, I'm James Taylor, business creativity and innovation keynote speaker, and this is The Creative Life, a show dedicated to you, the creative. If you're looking for motivation, inspiration, and advice while at home, at work, or on your daily commute, then this show is for you. Each episode brings you a successful creative, whether that's an author, musician, entrepreneur, performer, designer, or thought leader. They'll share with you their journey, their successes, their failures, their creative process, and much, much more. You'll find show notes for this episode as well as free training on creativity over at jamestaylor.me. Enjoy this episode. Hi, it's James Taylor here. Today's episode was first aired as part of International Authors Summit. This inspiring virtual summit reveals the secrets of making, marketing, and monetizing a best-selling book. If you would like to access the full video version as well as in-depth sessions with over 40 best-selling authors, then I've got a very special offer for you. Just go to internationalauthorssummit.com where you'll be able to register for a free pass for the summit. Yeah, that's right. Over 40 New York Times and Amazon best-selling authors, book editors, agents, and publishers sharing their insights, strategies, and tactics on how to write and market your first or next bestseller. So just go to internationalauthorssummit.com, but not before you listen to today's episode. Hey, it's James Taylor here, and I'm delighted to welcome today Honorée Corder. Honorée Corder is a strategic book coach and the author of more than 50 books, including You Must Write a Book, Vision to Reality, the successful Single Mom book series, and The Divorce Phoenix. She is also Hal Elrod's business partner in the Miracle Morning best-selling book series. Honorée provides group and one-on-one strategic book coaching to business professionals who want to write, publish, and market their books to bestseller status, create a platform, and develop multiple streams of income. She also does all sorts of other magical things, and her badassery is legendary. And it's my great pleasure to have Honorée join us today. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be with you. And that's a mouthful, goodness.
So share with everyone what's going on in your world just now.
I'm in the process of moving from Austin, Texas to Nashville, Tennessee. I have my next book with the advanced reader team. We just launched 2 Miracle Morning books. My daughter graduated from high school. We're adopting a puppy. And we're homeless right now. Other than that, nothing. So
are music cities magnets for you? Do you find being in those kind of environments, those types of cities that have strong music elements, is that conducive to your creative process?
I'm an introvert, so my creative process is whatever coffee shop or couch I'm situated on. But yes, I like to meet other creative people. I'm married to someone in the music business, so we tend to live where there is music.
So take us back. Where did it all begin for you? Where did becoming a writer, becoming an author start?
It started when I met Mark Victor Hansen at a conference, and I was sitting in the back of the room taking notes from all the speakers, and he came to the back, and of course I knew who he was, right? Chicken Soup co-creator. And he said, I'm Mark. And I said, I know. And I introduced myself, and he said, oh, Honorée, what do you do? And I said, oh, I'm a coach and a speaker. And I was so proud of myself. And he said, oh, yeah, so everyone's a coach and a speaker. And he said, you must write a book. And I said, oh, okay, I don't know anything about that. And he said, well, do you have a speech that you give that's popular? Yes, write that down. That's your first book. Use that and turn that into your first book. And that's what I did. And when that happened, I neither considered myself a writer, nor an author, nor a legit author, nor a capital W writer. Like none of that was right in my head. I wasn't like, oh, of course, I have a degree in journalism or English. Like, there was nothing that had prepared me for that moment. But I took his words to heart, and I heard that yes, there was the differentiating factor for me could be having a book, and it was. And I'm so glad that I took that advice.
So from getting that advice from Mark, how long before the book was out? Was it a very prolonged period of time, or was it a pretty quick process?
It was very quick. So I met him in October, and my book was out by the following April.
Wow, that is quick. So when you first published, because I know you work a lot now, especially in kind of more kind of independent publishing or self-publishing, depending how you describe it. Was that very first book self-published or independent, or did you go with a traditional publisher?
Oh yes. So I did not consider myself a writer, and I didn't even entertain the thought, which I think most people do, right? When I'm going to write a book, I'll get an agent and I'll try to sell it to a publisher. Never even crossed my mind to do that. Now, I had friends who had self-published books, and like I knew James Melanchek living in Las Vegas. I knew him a little bit, and I had made friends with a couple of other authors, and they were doing independent publishing, and it never occurred to me to go the traditional route.
And so was that more from a sense of speed, just kind of wanting out there, or are you a control freak? You love just having everything. What was it that drove you to be self-published?
Oh, it's much different than that. It was really, I didn't think anyone would have me. It never even occurred to me that I would have something to say that someone would want to buy.
Now you see this today, having authored more than 50 books, including like one of the biggest book series.
I know. Well, we all start somewhere, right? And so that's the reason I share that is because we all have that gremlin, right? The person on our shoulder that says, "Oh, but nobody wants to hear that." There's so many books on the topic that you want to write on. Why would anyone want to hear what you have to say? I published the book because I instinctively knew, and strategically knew that having a book would be a good way for me to engage clients. But it did not occur to me to try to take it big time, as it were.
Now,
does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and as you were writing that very first book, so you had those, that gremlin in your head, something's called the imposter syndrome type thing kind of going on in the kind of darkest days of going through that and working on that book and all the edits and everything. What pulled you through it? What took you to the point of and just kind of getting through and getting the book out?
Well, you're making it sound so fancy. I didn't. Was there supposed to be editing happening? There's so many things I didn't know with that first book, and I wish I'd had someone like me to consult with or talk to, or who had a book that I could have followed. The independent publishing. Keep in mind, this is 2004. That this is the time frame. So independent publishing was not even a thing that people like. Self-publishing was a dirty word. Like you went and washed your mouth out with soap after you said it. Back in the day, and still a little bit today, not as much, but back then I didn't know to have an editor or a proofreader. I wasn't talking myself through the process. I literally sat down and wrote the first draft of the book in the form of my speech. I didn't know any better. So I took a speech I had written, which was linear and progressive, and I wrote that down. I sat at my computer for 3 straight days and just typed it out. This 45-minute speech took me several days to type. I'm not sure why. And then I was so over it that I didn't touch it again for a few months. And then I called a friend of mine who had published a book traditionally and in the business realm. And I said, "I'd like to hire you as my coach. And I don't know what I don't know. Can I send you what I have?" And he said, "Ooh, I don't know. I don't know what to charge you. I don't really do this. That's not really my thing. Send it over." And I think underneath all of it was, what if it sucks and I have to tell her? Right? So I sent it off over email, and we had scheduled a call, and I was all excited because it's Friday. It's time for my coaching call with my coach. And I get on the phone, and he was like, "Hey, it's really good." And he didn't or couldn't or wouldn't disguise the utter shock that he was feeling, that it was actually not that bad in its current state. And that was the beginning of that process for me. Like, okay, what do I do next? Well, I need a book cover, so I'll have someone design it. And that someone wasn't necessarily a graphic designer, so it was terrible. And then I put a copy of the book out, and then I met Jeffrey Gitomer, who has written many books in the sales field, and he saw my book, and I had quoted him in my book, and he said, "Oh, this book, you're writing is pretty good, but this is terrible. This is awful." book cover was terrible. What's up with the format? It was just, and thankfully I didn't hear you are horrible. I just heard this is horrible.
It was working on the craft. You're
right. I didn't take it personally.
No.
I didn't hear, Honorée, you're terrible. I heard this book is terrible. Some people hear you're terrible when someone says their book isn't well done, which isn't correct.
So you had that kind of coach, albeit a reluctant coach at first, to help you with that book. Now you're really known today as well as being an author, also being a strategic book coach. So explain to me, because we hear all these different terms. We hear like editors and coaches, but you're I know you're very keen just on this phrase, a strategic book coach. How is that different from any other type of coach?
Well, so I did business coaching and executive coaching for a long time. A coach's job is to bring out the best in their clients and get them from point A, which is where they are, to point B, where they want to go. I understand the coaching process and did that for a very long time with business professionals of all in all disciplines. When I started publishing prolifically, right, 9 to 15 books a year, some of my professional clients said, well, should I have a book too? And I'd say, oh, sure. And can we work on that also? Why not? So I would walk them through the process. And as I started to hit, the 20s and the 30s and the 40s with my books, and I just am working on book 51 right now, I have a process that's soup to nuts. And the strategic part comes in because you have to know what the book is meant to do for you, and you have to know what the book is meant to do for the reader, among other things.
So that very first conversation you're having, I'd love what is the being a fly on the wall of those those first kind of conversations. What's being said? What are the concerns? What are maybe some of the misconceptions that you have to maybe help that person with and exploring themselves? Sure.
So it's, do you really want a book? Or is it a romantic idea, right? What do you really want a book? Because there are easier ways to spend your time, more fun ways to spend your time. And then what do you want the book to do for you? What's in it for you? That's my very first question, is what do you want the book to do for you? And if you want to be Hal Elrod, then look elsewhere, right? Because there's only one. There's no other Tony Robbins. There's no other Hal Elrod. So it's where does the book fit into your life and your business, and what do you want your book to do for your life and your business? And also, ultimately, what do you want the book to do for your reader? And what do you want the reader to do as a result of reading your book? What do you want the reader to not do as a result of reading your book? And that informs and influences the different pieces and parts of the book itself. What does the book look like? What's in the book? In addition to just the manuscript, there's so many other parts and pieces of a book, when it's done well, that are strategic.
And what are the big gaps? So as people are kind of thinking through this, you get a sense, okay, they really, they want this. It's not just like a nice thing to have or something that, kind of fancy they've had in their head. They really want this. And you've worked out that what role the book plays in their life and in their business, and then you worked out what value it's going to provide to the reader. That gap, or those gaps that exist between where that person is and where they want to get to, where are the biggest gaps? Does it tend to be more around the craft of the writing, or is it the marketing, or is just unsure about the distribution process? Where are the big gaps?
You mentioned them. So there's how do I get what's in my head out of my head and on paper, and is it valuable to the reader? How do I make it valuable to the reader? Do I write it myself? Do I hire a ghostwriter? Do I have a content person? Then how do I make the book readable? How do I make it excellent? Because you most likely have some sort of degree, and that degree is that is what they pay you for, your area of expertise. So you're not going to, you wouldn't trust a doctor who had gone to the, University of the blah, blah, blah.
and we apologize. Anyone that's listening who has gone to the University of blah, 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 we apologize.
.com. .com. Yes. I am Dr. So-and-so from the University of blah, blah, blah.com. And you would say, I think I will go to a trusted medical professional. Therefore, you don't want to go to the University of Bookwriting.com blah, 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 that is lower than your professional standard. You want to have the same professional standard for your book that you do for your business. And so that's very important. And how do you make sure that it does resemble, in my words, traditional publishing? Because traditional publishing tends to have the same standard as one would have for their business. And how do you get there? Who are the people that you need to hire? How do you know who they are? How do you know how much to pay them or not to pay them? How do you know if they're any good at what they do? There's a bench of people you need to produce your book. And then you need to actually publish your book. Where do you do that? And how do you do that? Right? And then how do you market your book? When does marketing take place? Hint, forever.
Yeah.
It started yesterday and goes until you die. Those are right. That's marketing phase 1 and 2. And then what are the different ways that you can turn your book into multiple streams of income? So what else can you do with the contents of your book? Once you've flushed out this great wealth of knowledge that you're walking around with that people will pay you for, you can repurpose that content. And so what are the best ways to repurpose that content? And all of that is missing. And I didn't even talk about launching the book. There's a specific way to launch a book so that it sells forever online, specifically Amazon, but at the other platforms as well. There's a way to do it, and there's a way to not do it. And I see people doing it in a way that is detrimental to their book rather than good for their book.
Now, part of your genius, I think, is you mentioned Mark Victor Hansen, and also you work with Hal Elrod as well, is this idea of writing in kind of series. So
yes.
I'm quite. Are you when you're kind of going in, you have this new idea? Are you always thinking, how could this be a 10-book series, or is it
no,
simple as that?
No.
Like, what is that? Because that is I guess that is also moving from the tactical to the strategic as well.
Sure. So my first book series was mine. It was The Successful Single Mom. And when I wrote The Successful Single Mom, I had an idea that I would write a book to solve the common problems single moms have, and have these 6 books, which I wrote. The reason that I partnered with Hal is twofold. One, because I was a good person and wrote him a 5-star honest review. Because I don't leave reviews unless I can leave a 4 or 5-star review for an author.
And authors do read those reviews. They read all.
The authors read them, and other potential readers read those reviews also. So if you are a good person, go leave a good review for your favorite author. And 2, because I had a series. So I decided that I needed to start leaving more reviews for other authors, because I have a philosophy, and part of that philosophy is that you give away what you want more of. And I wanted more book reviews, and I realized I wasn't reviewing books. So part of the reason I work with Hal is because I left a review for him. And the other part is because when he looked at my review, he realized I had a series and he wanted one.
I see.
And
so
I
didn't realize that was the order of things. So Hal he'd written The Miracle Morning first already, and then he read you, and then that all fits now. And I'm wondering then, when for example, The Successful Single Mom, did you have all 6 ideas, kind of just like you had them in your head, or you kind of mapped out, or was it very much, okay, I have these first 2 ones, I think this is going to be a series?
Well, I didn't. Book series wasn't in my head. I was just trying to be the most helpful to my reader. I'd like to say that I was this strategic genius, and thank you for using that word earlier. I'd like to say that I just kind of sit up here and just throw ideas, and they're all brilliant and amazing. But really, I didn't think anyone was going to read The Successful Single Mom. Then some people read it. And they started writing and asking me questions. So then I was doing a blog in conjunction with it and writing for Huffington Post, and realized that there was an opportunity for me to turn my knowledge. I was writing from a place of, I've been there, I've done that, and I figured out what works for me. Let me share it and see if it will work for you, which is one of the 2 places that I suggest someone can write from, which is the place of expertise, which is I figured it out, so here's my formula. Or in the case of Napoleon Hill, the reporter.
Yeah.
I haven't quite figured it out, but let me go interview a whole bunch of people who have, and then I'll report that. And that can also be a book. So if someone is wondering, ooh, do I have enough knowledge or experience? Well, maybe you don't, but you can also gather that and then share it with other people. That's another option.
I know a lot of people that you work with are more in that kind of, that kind of expert. They're the business professional.
Yes.
They're the speaker.
Yes.
They're kind of seen as being, maybe a leader in their field and their industry.
Correct.
I'm guessing, with them, when even if you have a conversation about book series, it must come up like, what is the first book? What is the first domino that they want to? Because they have so much in their head.
Sure. Yes. Well, they all have that first book that they want to write. Most people come to me because they have an idea in their head. I'll give you an example, if I may. Phil Hellmuth, who just won his 15th World Series of Poker bracelet just not very long ago, came to me and wanted to write #positivity. It was his philosophy, part of his philosophy as a human. And it wasn't very long into the project when he shared that he had an idea to go further with positivity. So positivity has been released and it's out there. Now that he's won this next bracelet, it's very probable that we'll start working on the next book in that series. And it will become not just one book, but 2 books, and then on from there.
And then the merchandise series.
Right. So then there's all these opportunities. And that's why asking the pre-questions is so important, James, right? It's not just, okay, here's my book. And I do have people who reach out to me and say, okay, my manuscript is almost done, and my English teacher from 10th grade is going to edit it, and it'll be ready to go. What do I do now? And I say, pump the brakes and get on my calendar because we want to make sure that the manuscript that you think is almost finished is actually almost finished. And it's going to do for you and your reader everything that you have in mind and some things that you don't know to think of quite yet.
So what would the Honorée of today say to that Honorée back then that was just starting to write that very first book? What advice would you give that maybe bright-eyed person that was just getting started?
Well, I would send her a copy of my book. You Must Write a Book.
A good place to start.
And I would say, because we know each other really well, when you have questions, you can call me. That's what I would say. I would say that you're going to luck out, girlfriend, in a lot of ways. But there are a lot of things that you're going to do wrong right now. And by wrong, I mean ineffective, right? There's effective and ineffective. As a coach, I don't live in the world of good, bad, right, or wrong. I'd say either effective or ineffective. And there are a lot of things that I did that were ineffective. And there were some things that I intuitively did that were effective. I would tell her to write that first book and then immediately start writing the second book, because the first book was Tall Order, published in 2005, early 2005. The second book was The Successful Single Mom, published in 2009. There was a gap of time there because I didn't think I was an author. I wasn't a writer. But then I had that next idea and I decided to pursue it. And because I'd already done it once before, I was like, all right, well, how hard could that be?
So I'm guessing, that's also the value of bringing in a coach, yourself, or bringing it's because you can say, it's not just like, okay, here is what to do. It's also, here's what not to do, because you've got those battle scars. You've gone down some of those roads and said, and you kind of understand where that person, what their mission, what their objective is in writing the book, and where they're coming from. And you can say, for you, I mean, you mentioned just like, the expert or the reporter model, perfect example. You can understand, this is where this person is. This is where this person can give the most to the reader, to the world, and to themselves. And this is the path we're going to go down for this first one.
Yes. What to do, what not to do, and where does it fit in? Is this the right time? Is this the right book? Is this the right title? Is this the right subtitle? Does the book have the right contents? Do you have the right metadata? I mean, all of the things. I talked to someone the other day. I was like, look, the book is very simple on the inside. You could redo it and make it more complex, but it's doing what you want it to do for you. So why do that? Just write your next book. So that was someone who wanted to hire me and to redo his book. And I said, I don't think that's a wise business decision.
Now, someone that's obviously
51st book is about to come out. Tell us, what is your ritual? Are you get your writing done in the morning, kind of get it done, and then you head out, or has it changed over the years? Do you work in batches? What does a day or a week of writing look like for you?
I write from 6 or 6:30 to 7 or 7:30 every day. It's the summer. My daughter graduated from high school, so I let myself sleep in that extra half an hour. The days that I didn't, I really regretted it. I always have a list of books that I'd like to write and outlines and ideas that I'm working on. It's just a matter of picking one particular project. And then I write that hour is inviolate for me. I put in my headphones. I'm on the couch. I've got a cup of tea and a cup of coffee and a bottle of water. There's no reason for me to be disturbed. And I just put my head down and I write whatever I'm writing.
And do you tend to stay writing on that same project until completion, or do you take a break at some point? Until it's done. Yeah. You go through.
Until it goes to the editor. And then while that book is at the editor, I'm working on the next one.
Got it. And in terms of tools, is there a particular tool that you like to use to write with it, like a Scrivener, or the things that you find very useful in terms of the researching stages for your book?
I am a Microsoft Word girl. I tried Scrivener. My assistant uses Scrivener. So technically my team uses it, but not me. I use Dragon Dictate a little bit. In Grammarly. Grammarly is worth its weight in gold. Grammarly, the app, and I suggest the professional version that you install on your computer, and it edits everything that you're typing. And just one tip for people when they're writing is after I'm finished with the book, when the book is done and I'm doing my review of the book, I go through the book again, and then I go chapter by chapter, and I take the chapter and I paste it into Grammarly. And I let it flush out for me which words are my crutches. You've used absolutely 17 times in this chapter. Maybe choose another word, Honorée. Okay, fine.
That's your the kind of written equivalent of a verbal tick, I guess. You're coming back time and time. It's an easy one to go in. So I actually haven't used Grammar. I've used another one called Hemingway app, which I think is a very simple type version. But I love them, and it really does. It kind of the first couple of times you do it, it's pretty appalling. I found for myself anyway.
It's just like when I work with any new author. I will say, when you get your book back, it will look like a crime scene. You're going to turn in this beautiful manuscript that you think is finished, and you're going to get that paper that you got back in high school, right, with the A+ written in red pencil with the 100 on it and a smiley face. Like, that's what we're thinking when we turn in a manuscript. And what we get back is an F with it looks like someone threw up in red pen on your manuscript, and that's the editor's job. The editor's job is to take it and make it clean, make it a clean, easy read for the reader.
Now we're going to have a link to your book, especially You Must Write a Book, and we'll talk about that in just a minute as well. But if there was one other book that you were to recommend, it could be on the craft of writing or the business of writing, or even just something to get people inspired that they can do it. What would that book be?
I'm going to go off the reservation a little bit and recommend You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero.
I think I've actually read this one as well. Yes, I think she's we actually had her on the show on my podcast recently as well. She was incredible. Incredible. Yes. Yeah. So that's great.
I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of Jen Sincero. And then Relentless by Tim Grover. Relentless by Tim Grover is what I listen to when I'm running on the treadmill and I'm not feeling it. I will put that on and he's like, a cleaner doesn't quit, a cleaner keeps going. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. So I'll listen to those audiobooks.
Great. We'll put the links for those as well. And a kind of final question for you. I want you to imagine you woke up tomorrow morning and all 51 books have disappeared. Your Amazon record is unknown. You're unknown as a writer. You have to start again. What would you do? How would you restart? But thankfully, I'm going to give you all the skills and all the talents that you have as a writer.
I would just write my next book.
Get it out. Get it happening.
I would say, okay, first of all, I would say thank God, because some of those earlier books, probably not the best prose on the planet. So I'd be like, phew, excellent. No need for that bonfire. I would sit down and make a list of what I know, what I know for sure. Right. Well, as a writer, what do I know for sure? What do I know works? What do I know are absolute certainties? And then I would write. And I would do it in record time, because I have had situations where I've had to pump out a manuscript in 8 or 9 days, and I've done it, and I know it can be done. So it wouldn't be long before I'd be back.
Honorée, it's always an absolute pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much for coming on. If people want to just kind of connect with you to learn more about your coaching, I know you do group coaching, you do one-on-one coaching, where's the best place for them to go and do that?
They can find out more on honoreecorder.com for sure. And I have a group class coming up in the fall, so they might be interested in that as well.
Well, Honorée, it's been a pleasure speaking to you today. Thank you so much for coming on, and I wish you all the best with book 51.
Thank you so much.
If you're interested in living a more creative life, then I'd love to invite you to join me as I share some of the most successful strategies and techniques that high-performing creatives use. I put them all together in a free downloadable ebook that you can get by going to jamestaylor.me. That's jamestaylor.me to get your free downloadable ebook on creativity.